Of all the things President Trump has said, including vulgar comments about women, his characterization of Haiti has brought the media to a tipping point, including us. So a warning to viewers who might be sensitive about curse words. While some news organizations are not quoting him exactly, we are.
At a White House meeting yesterday, President Trump reportedly wondered why we should accept immigrants from shithole countries like Haiti or in Africa. Oops, can I say that?
Africans aren't taking too kindly to President Trump's comments.
With that as a backdrop, many news outlets quoted the president exactly. The Washington Post, which broke the story, put the word in its headline, an apparent first in its 141-year history. The New York Times went softer in its headline, but used the word in its main story. And so it went through much of the media, with some offering warnings.
Here's the moment you want to mute.
ABC executives made the decision not to quote the president, a policy that clearly annoyed George Stephanopoulos.
We're not reporting the word right now. I think that's probably a mistake, because I don't think it's right to censor the president or to sugarcoat the racist sentiment revealed.
Broadcast networks have been skittish ever since the FCC fined CBS over Janet Jackson's 2004 Super Bowl wardrobe malfunction. It's the same reason many did not quote Trump's notorious conversation with Billy Bush.
Grab him by the pussy.
Bottom line, as Washington Post executive editor Marty Barron so sensibly stated, when the president says it, we'll use it verbatim.
Boy, I couldn't agree with George Stephanopoulos more. What are you thinking? Of course you don't want to sugarcoat what the president says. We've had this debate here many times, even over the Billy Bush comments. I mean, I wanted to use it to its credit. WGBH said yes. I mean, that's what the president said. We saw him on tape. We heard him on tape saying it. So, but this really was a tipping point. Even NPR, who was one of the most conservative news outlets anywhere, decided this morning that they were going to quote the president. They said, we're not going to do it gratuitously. We're not going to mention it every time in every single newscast. But I think they said once an hour or something like that. But at least they agreed that that should be the policy, that you quote the president verbatim.
Well, not everybody's doing it, even now. I mean, I was kind of shocked and appalled last night when, on the PBS NewsHour, Judy Woodruff referred to his comment as S-blank whole countries, and then later said it was a controversial comment. I mean, this is just a flat-out horrible racist comment about countries where the people are black and brown, and there's absolutely no sugarcoating it. And I don't think the media should be sugarcoating it. They should be reporting what he said as he said it. I don't know whether some outlets are concerned about the FCC.
I'm sure they are.
But this is, I think you can quote the President of the United States in a news story without worrying about the FCC. I hope I'm right about that.
Well, I think the problem is that you have standards. And for decades, these are certain standards that news organizations have had where you don't use certain language on the air. And so this comes up. That's what leads to this kind of debate. But I think, there are curse words, and then there are curse words used in the kind of context that we see here. So if the president were, getting off of Air Force One and he trips and he utters a word, that's something that I don't think we need to put on the air. But when it was used the way it was used, describing countries in this derogatory way, I think you have to use it.
What if it had been the F word?
I think whatever the president says in the context of how he said it, I think you have to use it.
But that is an interesting question, because I agree with everything you've said and Dan said, and yet if he had used a phrase that involved the F word, I don't think we'd be sitting here saying it's a shithole you can get away with. That other alternative or variations on it, you really can't. I hope there is some sort of trickle-down effect here, given how many outlets have decided, okay, if he says this, it's an integral part of the story. We don't want to dilute the effect by dancing around it, so we're actually just going to go ahead and speak it or print it. I hope that we start doing that with other figures who say things like this, as opposed to hiding behind phrases like barnyard epithet or vulgar term for the male or female anatomy, because anytime you do that, you're being dishonest with the public.
So I'm reminded, and I wish I could remember the exact wording of how people phrased what Scaramucci said about Bannon. Something about an illegal sex act involving Bannon or something, if you remember. It was very twisted. So,
like himself.
Yeah, exactly. So the only thing that I can say is that I don't know that we would even be reporting this word now if it hadn't been a brief but unspectacular history of the president saying so much other stuff. I think it's gotten to the point now, because many of us have reported an epithet or this or that, an untoward comment, blah, 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 all the euphemisms in many, many stories about him, that it got to the point where, well, what did he say? You have to know what he said to understand why anybody's reacting to it at a certain level. And this one, to your point, is a tipping point, and so people said, "Hey, here's what he said."
Kind of a condescending notion that you can't say these words, or what if the children are watching? Oh, for heaven's sakes, they're not watching the news anyway.
And a lot of people are making it seem like the issue is that he said shithole. It isn't.
Right.
No.
That would not be news.
No.
Right.
It's that he said shithole countries.
He was talking about
describing people.
Right.
Right.
Absolutely.
It was about the people. It wasn't about the country.
Right.
It was the
think,
people.
though,
That's right.
And I know you said this, but I don't think that this should open the door for us always using this. If so, then you're just going to have curse words on air or whatever all the time. I think you have to look at each individual circumstance.
I don't disagree there.
Because if it's the president or it's a leading House member or whatever, and they say something, yes. But I don't think if an actor or somebody says something derogatory, I don't think you should put that.
I wouldn't argue with that at all. What I meant to say is, in situations where the language used is integral to what we're talking about, we should probably note before wrapping up here that the president has said he didn't use the language attributed to him, although he did not explain what he said instead. And we've had other people, Dick Durbin, come out and say he did.
Yeah, people in the room have come out and said he said it.
Said it.
Yeah.